The Cartoonerific podcast is sponsored by the Wonderful World of Animation Gallery, home of rare and wonderful fine animation art. Visit their website at wwagallery.com. And for our Cartoonerific listeners, you will receive a special 10% discount off any purchase if you purchase by March 25th, 2024. Just go to wwagallery.com and enter code CARTOON10 for your 10% discount. Once again, this discount is only valid until midnight, March 25th, 2024. Once again, visit wwagallery.com.
The following is a Cartoonerific Studios presentation.
Welcome to Cartoon Fun, it's Cartoonerific. Yeah! It's Cartoonerific. Cartoonerific. It's Cartoonerific. With your host, Brian Mitchell.
Well, welcome. This is the Cartoonerific podcast, Classic Animated Cartoons. I am Brian Mitchell, and I'm your host. You know, if you've been listening to the podcast or a few episodes here and there, you'll hear a little ad that goes on with a little jingle and talks about Cartoonerific and all the things that are going to be coming to Cartoonerific. And, you know, it's been a slow rollout because originally we're going to have an animation art gallery and memorabilia shop. And that was supposed to be online somewhere in July or August. And we've had to push that off a little bit. The podcast has been all important right now because, you know, just letting people know about it and promoting it, it's taken a lot of time. But eventually things have gotten online. The company store is online now. So if you go over there and you wish to get a Cartoonerific shirt or a hat or something like that, it's available. You just go to our website, cartoonerific.com, and you can access the link from there, and we'll take you right to the Cartoonerific company store. The gallery is actually going to be online sometime in the next week or so. We've been working on it. It's taken a little bit of time to kind of get it right. So please check that out. We do have cartoons coming up where we're going to be, basically premiering them online, which will be the Cartoonerific channel. That hasn't happened yet. May be delayed a little bit because everything has kind of been slow going. Just want to get everything, all our ducks in a row and all the I's dotted and the T's crossed. So we just want to make sure that all happens before we roll out the next phase. But right now, the blog is going. We have the company store. The gallery is going to be rolled out soon. And these podcasts have been pretty regular. I mean, we've been doing them every week. And sometimes we fall a little bit behind, but that hasn't really been a major issue. So please continue listening. And if you really like what you're listening to and you want to support us, the best way of doing that right now is buying a hat or a jacket or something like that. Or when the gallery is online, you make a purchase there that helps us out. So you can help out the Cartoonerific cause of celebrating classic animated cartoons. Anyway, today is our Halloween show. We're doing it a little bit early, but we have Rick Goldschmidt coming on. He's going to be talking about the Mad Monster Party and the couple of Rankin Bass specials that were done for the holiday season. So that will be a lot of fun. So anyway, stay tuned for that. We'll be right back.
Cartoonerific is the place to be to celebrate hand-drawn animated cartoons. The Cartoonerific podcast features interviews with the magic makers behind your favorite animated cartoons, with episodes uploaded every Friday. Or visit the Cartoonerific blog featuring articles about classic cartoon animation. At the Cartoonerific Gallery, view original animation art and memorabilia from your favorite animated films and TV shows. The company store features exclusive swag from the Cartoonerific universe. And coming soon, brand new world premiere cartoons on the Cartoonerific channel. It's all here. Join the fun at www.cartoonerific.com. That's cartoon, ERIFIC.com. It's Cartoonerific, saving the universe one funny cartoon at a time. And now it's time for our special Cartoonerific guest.
Hey, our next guest is, he's been with us before. We've talked about the enchanted world of Rankin Bass, and we decided to have him back on the spooky Halloween animation special podcast. And we're going to be talking about all the Halloween stuff that Rankin Bass did, and namely Mad Monster Party, because they didn't do a whole bunch, but they did more Christmas specials than they did Halloween stuff. But anyway, please welcome Rick Goldschmidt. Hi, Rick. How you doing?
Hi. How you doing? Good.
I'm hanging in there, you know. And so, you know, I wanted to have you back to just talk specifically about Mad Monster Party. There are people out there that are big fans of that. I grew up in the 60s. I saw it in the original theatrical release in Brooklyn, New York, not too far from where Rankin Bass is, across the river. I just remember seeing it and being creeped out by it. And, because I think, when did it come out, Rick? It came out in what, 66 or 67? Maybe a little bit later?
67, 68, and 69. It kind of was a slow release.
A slow release. I saw it the first time it came out because I didn't live for Brooklyn too much longer than that. Because in 69 we already moved out of Brooklyn. So tell me a little bit about Mad Monster Party and how it got started.
Well, Mad Monster Party is probably one of the main reasons why I became the Rankin Bass historian biographer, because I loved the design of the show, and I love Halloween too. But the main thing was I love the designs of Jack Davis, especially his monster designs.
Yes.
And I was talking to him about his work when I got out of college and brought up Mad Monster Party. And he had told me that he was still doing some work for Arthur Rankin. In fact, around that time, he did some more monster work for Arthur Rankin because they were going to do a sequel called The Mad Monster Reunion.
Oh, okay.
And they even had like a little pilot film done in CGI, some cheap CGI animation. But
wow.
It was that Jack Davis connection that really brought me into this whole world of Rankin Bass. So.
Well, he must have been flattered, I would imagine, because I'm sure, it's, I think it's kind of a cult film, right?
Yeah, it's become more and more popular as time goes on. It influenced a lot of the animators on Nightmare Before Christmas and Corpse Bride. It really gave a lot of animators a spark to get into the business. So it's an important film in that regards. It's not as well known as like Rudolph or Frosty or whatever.
Right, absolutely.
But it does see some airings now on Turner Classic Movies. In fact, the last time they showed it in prime time, and they had me do tweets for them during the movie.
Oh, so you were giving like little tidbits of facts throughout the movie?
Right.
Cool.
And I had mentioned to them that I wanted to come into the studio, and at that time they couldn't have me in because of the whole COVID thing like a couple years ago.
Right.
But they said they intended on having me into the studio to talk about not only Mad Monster Party, but Mad Monster Party was part of a 3-picture deal with Joseph E. Levine. So they show all 3 of those movies on Turner Classics, The Daydreamer and The Wacky World of Mother Goose.
So they show that all in like one evening, or they space them out? Well, that would make sense, yeah.
And since then, The Daydreamer came out on Blu-ray from Kino Lorber's Scorpion, and I did the commentary on there.
Oh, very cool.
Gambin.
Very cool.
We intend to do another Blu-ray of Mad Monster Party and The Wacky World of Mother Goose, but they have so many releases, I think it'll eventually get in their schedule.
Kino Lorber, they've been putting out all the not the Rankin Bass, the Patty Freeling cartoons,
right? And
they did an absolutely superb job. I mean, even the covers to the Blu-ray, excuse me, they have like a color version, and then they have like a pencil version of the characters, which I thought was, wow, there's a little bit of appreciation there. No.
Yeah, I have all of those too, and I agree, they're good.
Right. So, well, I think the fact that Turner Classic Movies, and Kino Lorber are involved with these things. I mean, too bad they're not involved with all the other stuff. And I guess we'll talk about that at a later podcast. But yeah. But
I did a screening of Mad Monster Party about 5 years ago at the Flashback Monster Convention, and I did it with Rich Coe's Svengoolie.
Oh,
and he's been wanting to show Mad Monster Party since way back, like 20 years ago.
Right.
And he's a big fan, and he had me on his show during the Wolfman to talk about Mad Monster Party.
Oh, wow.
So there's a big appeal to the film, and I think if it was shown on Svengoolie nationwide, it'd bring a lot more fans into the mix too.
Oh, I'm sure it would. I mean, I think, because I grew up during the 60s and I was aware of it when they would run it on TV, I would just, I would watch it. I mean, it spooked me, but it had funny moments to it. I mean, it wasn't, really horrifying, but there were creepy things about it. And I always thought the ending to that film was a little bit weird.
Somebody asked me about that recently, and I saw an episode of either The Twilight Zone or One Step Beyond, where there was a character in it that at the end, they were a computer. So I think they borrowed that from a famous episode of The Twilight Zone.
Possibly.
It's kind of a parody of something that they saw.
Right.
But it's kind of funny, Well,
it's kind of funny now, but as a kid watching it, it was a little bit disturbing, And
think about it. The closest thing to Mad Monster Party, in my opinion, is Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein.
Oh, that's right.
And at the end of Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein, the Invisible Man is in the boat.
That's right.
So there's a lot of similarities between the two, and those are the two movies I put on when I hand out my candy on Halloween. And I get a lot of trick-or-treaters. I get like 200 kids. And I have those movies running while I'm doing all that.
Wow, that's pretty cool. In New York here, we'll get maybe three groups of trick-or-treaters, and I'll be left over with a lot of candy, which made me very happy, I have to say. So, but it's I guess a big difference. Where are you? You're in Illinois, right?
You're right. I'm not far from a mall, so maybe that's why I get a lot of because a lot of people will be like in a van with 10 kids, and then they'll get out, and then they'll go back to the van and go to the next place.
Wow.
So I think it's because I'm near a mall and I'm in a suburban area. So
Yeah. Well, I am too, but I don't know. For some reason, I think people are having more parties now, maybe.
right.
And because things have kind of opened up a little bit, but I don't know. I know they canceled it. I know the first year of COVID, they canceled it. They canceled all the Halloween stuff.
They didn't cancel it here, and
Oh, wow.
I had a lot. I still had about 100 kids,
Wow.
maybe 200.
Wow.
So
It was a COVID Halloween party again.
right.
Jeez. So anyway, getting back to Mad Monster Party.
Sure.
So I guess their approach to making these things, I mean, it was obviously animated overseas. And I mean, I didn't know that when I was a kid, but just because I know Rankin Bass,
right.
the stop motion was still being done by the studio that they worked with on Rudolph, correct?
Right. And the head animator, Tad Moshinaga, was the father of animation or stop motion animation in Japan. So he really was a talented man.
Right.
And Arthur knew that. Arthur could see the quality of the work that they were doing when he did the New Adventures of Pinocchio.
Mm-hmm.
And his objective was to keep them working. So he had to come up with projects. If there was a lull in what they were doing, he had to come up with something that would keep them busy.
Right.
All into the 80s.
Okay. When they came up with the 3-picture deal, was Mad Monster Party the first of the 3? Or was it Wacky, the World of, was it, the Mother Goose
was,
one? The Wacky
Mother
World of
Goose was first, yeah.
Okay.
And then the Daydreamer was second. And Levine didn't like the Daydreamer. He was disappointed with it. So that's why Mad Monster Party was sort of snuck out over a period of 3 years. In fact, the New York Times didn't review the movie until 1969.
Wow.
So, and that review is in my book, Rankin Bass's Mad Monster Party.
Did they give it a rave or?
Yeah, they liked it.
Right.
I mean, Phyllis Diller and Boris Karloff are two pretty big names, and it was one of the last things Boris did, and Phyllis loved it because she got to sing, and she worked on that song in the Beverly Hills Hotel. She had a rented piano, she talks about.
Right.
And she just loved to sing and loved art. She was an artist. So, I mean, Jack Davis really captured her character, and, to have all the movie monsters in there too. It's a much bigger film than I think, it gets credit for.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not just really a cult film anymore. It's one of the better efforts by Rankin Bass. And the genesis of it, well, they signed the deal with Levine in early 1965, probably mostly on the basis of the first airing of Rudolph was so big, everybody wanted a Rudolph.
Right.
And Arthur Rankin had a Jack Davis poster on his desk in 1965, the artwork that wasn't used for the actual release. I use it now for a print, and I have T-shirts made up with the artwork, which I think is the best artwork that was done for the movie.
Right.
But it was called when Boris Karloff recorded his dialogue, it was called the Monster Movie. It was also called the Monster Rally in storyboards. It was called a few other things before they came to the title Mad Monster Party with a question mark.
right
after it. and what happened was Len Karobkin wrote the screenplay, and he wrote some of the New Adventures of Pinocchio and Tales of the Wizard of Oz.
Mm-hmm.
And Jack Davis may have mentioned to Arthur that Harvey Kurtzman was available, or maybe Arthur wanted to punch up the script with some comedic jokes that were similar to Mad Magazine.
Mm-hmm.
And so he brought Harvey in, and Harvey just added some one-liners. And in fact, in this pharmacy with Felix and Mr. Cronkite, there's Wiebelfetzers being sold in stacks. And Wiebelfetzers was a joke in Mad Magazine from Harvey Kurtzman. So it was things like that he added to the mix. And I think the reason they changed the title to Mad Monster Party with the question mark was sort of a shot at Mad Magazine, because Harvey wasn't working for Mad anymore. Bill Gaines took it over.
Oh,
but that was sort of his baby. He started it.
Right.
So he brought some humor into it like that.
Right.
And it was helpful.
Oh, sure. No, it has a lot of humor to it.
Yeah.
And, I would say like Hotel Transylvania.
Yeah.
Kind of has, it owes its existence probably to Mad Monster Party. I wonder if Adam Sandler kind of saw that as a kid and was influenced by it.
Well, what happened was they were trying to remake Mad Monster Party for a long, long time. In fact, some of the producers came to my book signing release at the Van Eaton Galleries in Sherman Oaks in 2011 or 2012.
Right.
And they said that they had the rights to Mad Monster Party and they were trying to get a movie made. And now that Tim Burton, I think he made a movie around that time about Frankenweenie. And
yeah. Frankenweenie is from he made it as a feature film. He made the original Frankenweenie as a short back in the 80s.
Right.
And then he made a feature film, Frankenweenie.
Well, even the feature film kind of gotten forgotten about.
Yes.
And at one time, Frankie Avalon's son or daughter and Annette Funicello's son or daughter had a production company, and they bought the rights to Mad Monster Party. And I know that because Arthur Rankin called me up and told me about it, and he had to sign off on it.
Right.
So there's been all these different production companies trying to. In fact, they had the writers from the movie analyze this involved, and it was in Variety that they were going to rewrite a Mad Monster Party script. So Hotel Transylvania is just a derivative of that Mad Monster Party remake idea.
Yes.
They knew about it and they were aware of it, but they thought, okay, we'll just do our own thing. And that's what came of it.
I call it something totally different.
Right.
Yeah. Interesting. But I could see the seeds there.
Yeah.
When you watch things, when you see things as a kid that you really like, and as you grow up, it's almost like you want to. It's not like you want to remake it, but you want to get elements of that stuff into your project. Everybody's influenced by something, so I could see Mad Monster Party being a big influence for a lot of people, like Tim Burton and maybe Adam Sandler. I don't know, but anyway, getting back to the production of the movie. Now, they storyboarded it. I guess like all Rankin Bass stuff, they did the pre-production in New York.
Right.
Did they record? Did they also record it in New York, or? Or
They
did
usually recorded in England, the music. And they also had to record Boris Karloff at his home in England. Most of the recording was done in England, the final recording. The preliminary recordings were done in New York. And
so all the voice acting was done in New York, with the exception of Boris.
right. Well, Alan Swift was a New Yorker, and he did most of the voices.
Right.
I think Gail Garnett might have been in New York at the time, but Phyllis Diller definitely was recorded in California.
Yeah.
They would have brought her into a studio and had her record at a mic.
Right.
I recently interviewed Teddy Eccles. He was the little drummer boy, and he said that the recording of with Rankin Bass was a lot different than when he recorded at Hanna-Barbera, where you were in booths with all the actors that were on the show,
Right.
separate booths. He said when he recorded the little drummer boy, Arthur Rankin was there reading him the lines of the other characters, and then he was just at a mic in the middle of the studio.
Right.
So it was a little bit different recording with Rankin Bass. In fact, they were mobile. They would bring a mobile recording unit to you if they had to. They did that with James Cagney at his farm.
In upstate New York, right?
Yeah,
Wow.
right.
Yeah.
And they had to do that with Boris because he was ill. He was suffering from various illnesses, including shingles.
Oh, my God.
Arthur remembered. So he wasn't too mobile, and he preferred that they record him at his home.
I think he also had a heart condition as well. So, geez.
Right.
Oh, my God. Yeah, it almost sounds like when they went to Mel Blanc to record Barney Rubble.
Right.
When,
after his accident.
After his accident, they basically set up a recording studio in his bedroom to record Barney. And I think they did the same thing with like Bugs Bunny. I think they had to go to him to kind of,
Right.
Yeah, it's crazy. But I know Paul Frees used to, he could record up in, I think he lived in Sausalito, California. So sometimes he would record stuff from there. But I think during the heyday of that Jay Ward stuff, they were recording down in Los Angeles.
Right. Paul Frees said, too, and I quoted him in my book, that the only two producers he would get on a plane for was Jay Ward and Arthur Rankin. That was it.
When they did the pre-pro in New York, who was doing the storyboards? Do you know? Who was
Don Duga.
Don Duga did them all?
Right.
Jeez.
And
Wow.
in fact, he remembered that for the Mummy sequence where the band is playing the song,
Right.
he studied films of Killer Joe Pyro, who there were some ads for Killer Joe Pyro in comic books back then,
Right.
because he did the Peppermint Lounge dancing in New York.
Yes.
He had certain dances that were popular, and they were trying to mimic or parody or copy those dances. And in fact, he even got film credit for that. So Don Duga was the one that had to sort of translate Killer Joe Pyro's dancing into storyboards or film setups.
Right. Now, Don did all the storyboard. I mean, that's a tremendous amount of work to do a storyboard for a feature film.
Right.
Okay, to do a storyboard for a TV show is a lot of work, and you're only working on a third of an episode. So, did they space it out, or did they just lock him in a dungeon somewhere and just you're not getting out till you get this done?
Oh, he liked to work for Rankin Bass. In fact, his Daydreamer storyboards, my late business partner Wes Garlitz bought those from someone in Japan, and we put some of the pages of that storyboard book in my book about the making of Santa Claus is Coming to Town and the Daydreamer. So Don, yeah, he loved to do that work for Rankin Bass, and he was a New Yorker, and he always loved talking about the projects
Right.
and the history of Rankin Bass, and he was one of the most helpful guys in putting together my first book. He had hung on to a lot of things that Rankin Bass had thrown away,
Right.
including the model sheets for Mad Monster Party. I never would have had the model sheets if it wasn't for Don.
Oh, wow.
Because Jack Davis didn't hang on to them,
Yeah.
and neither did Arthur Rankin. So,
See, I'm one of those guys that I have pretty much everything I worked on, you know?
right.
And it's like at least a copy of it, you know?
Uh-huh.
And I'm a little bit of a pack rat?
Right.
Is that the expression? But,
Same here.
Yeah, just hold on to everything, and it's in boxes and stuff, and, you know, and I'm often surprised I open stuff up, and I'm like, oh, wow, I didn't even I forgot I had this, you know. So.
Well, Don taught an animation course at the School of Visual Arts in New York.
That's my alma mater. I went there.
And he was there for a long, long time. He didn't retire until, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago or something like that.
Right.
But I think maybe he hung on to a lot of it for his classes too.
Right.
For his whatever he was teaching. You know, he would use those things as examples. So
right. It's funny because I went there. He wasn't teaching at the time. They had 3 instructors, and he was not one of them. But I think he came in later. And I went there like in early 80s. So,
wow.
Yeah. So I think he may have came in a little bit later because he was probably still working for Rankin Bass doing stuff. And he also did other things too, right? Don Duga, he did advertising.
He started a company with his wife called Polestar.
Mm-hmm.
And they were doing various animation projects, I think more in the line of advertising and commercials.
Right. Yeah, they were all the way out in Long Island.
Right.
Like all the way, I think, about somewhere in the Riverhead area, Long Island.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah. Yeah, I know stuff. I do know stuff. You know, sometimes I say stuff and I'm like, oh boy. Made a big boo-boo with that one, and then you know, because people will correct me and they'll say, no, that's not right. But yeah, no, I do know some stuff. So anyway, so how long was Mad Monster Party in production?
About 18 months was usually how long they spent on one project.
Right.
Maybe a year in this case. It's hard to say.
Right.
I know a lot of it started in 65, but it didn't end up reaching the screens until, you know, sometime in 67.
Right.
So I don't know how long exactly the animation was going, but usually about a year.
Right. I mean, when they were doing the TV specials, like an hour-long special, which would probably translate to about 50 some odd minutes.
Right.
And then the rest with, you know, advertisements, you know. How long would it take for them to do that? I mean,
well,
would it be around the same, like a year, or to put it all together?
Sometimes they had to speed up the production because if Arthur went in and sold the show to NBC or ABC or whatever, they wanted to have it on the air by, you know, a certain date.
Like yesterday.
Right. So he would be the taskmaster. We got to get this done. We got to have this, you know. So
right.
Maybe for things like that, they would put more people on.
Right.
in the studio, and they were working on many scenes simultaneously.
Right.
It depended on the schedule and how fast they had to have it out there.
Well, I'll tell you this. Normally, when you do like a half-hour show, it seemed like when I did a special for Fox, I didn't produce, I directed it. And normally you get about 26 weeks to do it.
Wow.
And so about half a year. And we had so many production problems getting it to animation that I think that was shortened to like 18 weeks.
Wow.
And that was really kind of crazy because we had to get it in and get it into editing and then, add all the sound effects and music and do the color balance on it. And so it takes time. But the thing was that they told us, oh, you have all this time to do it. And then they shortened it by 6 weeks, 6 weeks or 7 weeks. Oh no, we need it like, we need it in November because it's going to air in the middle of December. And
right.
So the amazing thing about these overseas outfits is they have a lot of people working for them, and they can pull people off a project and have them all jump on and blow out a show. Get an ink and paint. They can have the whole thing inked and painted in a couple of days, and I mean that's a lot of work.
Right.
To ink and paint an animated show. I don't care. I don't care what a lot of people, you might think, oh, how much work can it be? Well, if you're dealing with, 12 to 24 pieces of artwork per second, cells, it adds up pretty quick to a tremendous amount of work. And then you got to make sure that stuff dries before you put it under camera. You got to shoot it. You got to shoot it all. And that's crazy. So, I know they can do it. I know they can do it with the manpower.
The way the relationship between Arthur Rankin and Jules Bass worked was Arthur went to Japan. Jules never did. He stayed in New York and oversaw like the voice actors and the music. Arthur went to Japan. He loved the culture. He loved visiting there, and he oversaw everything that they did. So he was there to make sure that it got done right. Now, when they did their next Halloween special for the ABC Saturday morning superstar movie, Mad Monsters, they hired a young animator named Masaki Iizuka. And Masaki became sort of like the third member of Arthur's family, the third son.
Right.
And he would oversee the Japanese animators and be executive producer or associate producer on everything that came afterwards from 1973 on.
Right.
And he actually started his own animation studio called Pacific Animation, and they did The New Adventures of Johnny Quest and some other shows.
Okay.
He passed away a couple years ago.
Right.
And I met him in 2014. I met him in 2003 at the Museum of Television and Radio. He looked like a young guy to me still.
Right.
He never looked old. So I was shocked to hear that he had passed away.
Yeah.
A few years ago.
That's unfortunate. Did he just work on Mad Monsters, or was he involved with the Rudolph? Was he involved with any of the other cell animation?
The later ones, yes, like Rudolph's Shiny New Year and Frosty's Winter Wonderland,
right?
And all of the things they did in the 70s. Even The Year Without a Santa Claus, and
right?
Nestor the Long-Eared Donkey. All of those have Masaki's name as associate producer or whatever. He
Right.
was a big part of the company
Right.
from that point on.
Yeah. They're very, very important making those Rankin Bass specials work is to have that control overseas. And
Right.
yeah. Mad Monster Party, just going back to that again, because when that film came out, it was basically, you said it was a slow release. So it never made it to it was considered like matinees, right? It didn't go to, because I don't remember it being shown in the evening. I remember it being, maybe a couple of shows in the morning, 10 a.m. or 12, 2 o'clock, and then they would probably go to the other features.
I had a movie poster where there was a piece of cardboard stuck on it that said "Kitty Matinee, Saturday only."
Oh, wow.
So most of the releases were just for Saturday morning, but there's another newspaper clipping I have from the New York area where it has a lot of theaters listed.
Mm-hmm.
So it may have run in the theaters at night for a short time.
Right.
In like 67. But after that, it was relegated to Saturday morning matinees. And this is another interesting thing about Mad Monster Party is the artwork that they ultimately ended up using was by Frank Frazetta. And Frank did...
that doesn't make any sense. Jack Davis designed the whole thing. He should have done the posters for it. But
well, Arthur wanted to use the Jack Davis artwork as the poster, but for some reason, I think Levine's people took Frazetta's roughs. They weren't even finished art.
Mm-hmm.
And they made one of the roughs a movie one sheet, and the other rough they used on the half sheet, where it's a car with the monsters getting out of the car.
Right.
And Frazetta did a finished piece for the movie that was never used. It popped up later in a Frazetta book, and that's how I got a hold of it and got in touch with the Frazetta art people.
Right.
But when I did my first book, I called up Frazetta's wife because he wasn't doing that well at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And she didn't really remember much about it, but what I had found out in later years was Frazetta didn't know they used his artwork, and he ripped one of those posters down from the Kitty Matinee, and he called up, I don't know if he called Rankin Bass or if he got a hold of Levine, whoever hired him to
Mm-hmm.
do the project, and he was pretty hot under the collar and yelled at him and got paid for it.
Wow.
But it wasn't something that he agreed to, and I think that's why it was Levine who did that, not Arthur Rankin.
Right.
Because Arthur remembered it as Jack Davis art. Even when I showed him the Frazetta art, he was like, "That's Jack Davis." I said, "No, that's Frank Frazetta."
Wow.
So that's how that.
They were both
mix
brilliant
up
artists.
happened.
They were both great artists, Frank Frazetta.
Oh, yeah.
And Jack Davis. But it's just, you want to kind of keep it consistent. And just the fact that they went to Frank Frazetta.
Right.
Yeah, it's just kind of weird, I think, But
Well, Jack got into the poster business before Frazetta.
Mm-hmm.
And Jack did a lot of designs. He even did the first Rankin Bass movie poster, Willie McBean and His Magic Machine.
Oh,
So
okay.
his designs were once he did It's a Mad, 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 Mad World with all the comedians running in a long line and you could see all the people in there.
Yes.
Then all the movie studios wanted a poster like that.
Right.
And Jack got so busy that Frazetta started designing posters like that too, and got into that business, And Jack wasn't the type of person that would resent another artist copying him or taking away his work. He
Right.
was happy that anybody could get work. So Frazetta started doing similar posters to Jack Davis posters,
Wow.
with What's New Pussycat and that Vampire Killers movie that Roman Polanski did. He did things like that, and it was very similar to Jack Davis. So that's how the two kind of got mixed up together.
It's a great thing that movie has survived all these years and not faded into obscurity, because a lot of films do. You know, like we were talking about, Frankenweenie was made 10 years ago, and it's nowhere. You know, I don't know if Disney's streaming it or not. I haven't looked, but
no.
But it's funny. Some movies just the popularity is not there, and they just disappear. But Mad Monster Party keeps going on and on and on, and you're part of the reason for that. Your book about Mad Monster Party. Tell me a little bit about it.
Well, it goes into how they made the movie and all the various aspects of the movie, and I even got Maury Laws to give me all of the sheet music, which
that's right.
never was published.
Maury did all the music for the movie, right?
Right, and he did it in the style of James Bond, where it's a jazzy score, which I always liked it better because of that.
Sure.
There's some really good songs in there.
Yeah, there are. I mean, Maury Laws was fantastic. He really was. The one song I remember, was it "Do the Mummy"?
Right, yeah, exactly.
Is it four skeletons singing it?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And the funny thing is, in Mad Monsters, there's also a skeleton band, and they're having a bachelor party or something for the monster. So I confused the story, the plot lines of the two, because it's not really a remake of Mad Monster Party or a sequel. It's something a little bit different.
Well, it's cell animated, so it's but it's Jack Davis's designs again, right?
Actually, on that one, it's Paul Coker's artwork. But you know, when I looked at it, it looked like he might have been, you know, looking at the Jack Davis stuff. Is that possible? Some of it, yeah.
Yeah.
They tried to keep it consistent, especially on Boris, because Boris Karloff had passed away by then.
And who was doing his voice? Was it Alan? Good.
My late friend Bob McFadden did the Boris, and he even did that Boris voice for me as a voicemail message.
Oh, very neat.
Bob McFadden, he did Frankenberry and Milton the Monster and a lot of Frankenstein voices over the years.
Oh, wow. I love Milton the Monster. That was done out of New York. I think that was Hal Seeger.
Right.
Yeah. I know Hal Seeger was in business for a while because I went up there. Their studio was still around the 80s. I went up there, but I was basically, you couldn't get through the front door there. They wouldn't let you in, you know.
Wow.
But then again, they didn't, you know, some punk kid coming up there. What other Halloween stuff did they do? So when I say Halloween, you know, Mad Monsters, anything else spooky that...
well, Jack-o'-lantern was an episode of the Festival of Family Classics, which is a Halloween episode, and some stations were showing it as an actual TV special at night. In the early 70s, and that's on my DVD for Mad Monsters that I sell in my Etsy store.
Your Etsy store. What is it? What do you call the Etsy store? Is it the Rankin?
It's under Miser Bros. It's Etsy.com/shop/Miser Bros.
Oh, there you
Miser
go.
Brothers.
You have a lot of neat stuff on there, Rick. It's a lot of goodies, you know.
Another thing, Halloween wise, Rankin Bass did was they had Evil Irontail, Vincent Price, and Here Comes Peter Cottontail. And there was a Halloween section in there with Esmeralda, the witch.
Oh, that's right.
And, Vincent Price's goth look in that special inspired Tim Burton to do everything that he's done in his movie career. That was it. And I know for a fact that was his influence.
Right.
Was Vincent Price and Rankin Bass.
Wow. Well, you have Irontail in there, right? Mm-hmm. And so, take the tail off, right? Put the iron piece on, and then basically Edward Scissorhands, right? So I could see the influences. The book Mad Monster Party, is that still available?
Oh yeah, in hardcover at miserbros.com or in my Etsy shop. Is
that available on Amazon if people have like an Amazon card that they want to burn up?
Yes, it's in the marketplace. I'm in the marketplace on Amazon.
On Amazon. Cool.
With all of those books. So, Miser Bros and Etsy, I have, artwork. I have signed postcards from Paul Coker Jr., who unfortunately passed away this past July.
Holy moly.
He was 93 years old, and he was signing things all the way up till the end for me.
Wow.
A great guy. One of the rocks of Rankin Bass Productions.
Oh, his look is all over Frosty the Snowman, and geez, I'm trying to think of some of the other ones to refresh my memory.
Well, Heat Miser and Snow Miser are his characters. And wow. They're probably the most famous of Rankin Bass characters that there are.
Right.
And his first job.
'Twas the night before Christmas. I don't want to forget about that because I absolutely love that special, and and his look is all throughout that.
Yeah, he started on his first job for Rankin Bass was The Wacky World of Mother Goose, which was the first film in the Levine deal, and his artwork is on the record album sleeve. But he also designed the characters, but they didn't look as much like his artwork because I think they had Toei do that movie.
Right.
And Mushi was better with Paul Coker art. They did the Festival of Family Classics and Frosty and 'Twas the Night Before Christmas. So you could see they had a better understanding of the Paul Coker look.
I was very surprised, and I mean, if anybody wants to research this, I remember seeing back in the 70s at a record store, they had 'Twas the Night Before Christmas, I guess the soundtrack from the special, as a storyteller that Disneyland Records put out. And And even as a kid, I was like, wow, this is weird because Disneyland Records just released Disney stuff, and I knew Rankin Bass was a totally separate company. So, but it was a beautiful, beautiful album cover for that.
Right. I have that on CD in my Etsy shop. They did that in Frosty's Winter Wonderland on Disneyland.
Right.
And then they did The Hobbit.
That's right.
And Return of the King.
That's right. So there's some cross there with the Walt Disney Company. I don't know. Maybe one day those specials will end up with the Walt Disney Company. I wonder. They're swallowing up everything anyway. But anyway, hey, Rick, it was good to have you on. And always a lot of fun. And I guess we'll check back in with you in a couple of months about the Christmas specials.
Right.
So,
and happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween.
Do you have any questions or comments about the podcast? Please email Brian at cartoonerific.com. Your email may be featured in one of our future shows.
Well, thank you, Rick Goldschmidt, for that wonderful talk about Mad Monster Party. I love that movie, Mad Monster Party. I haven't seen it in a while, so I got to go back and revisit it. But I saw it as a kid. I saw it later on, years later on, and I haven't seen it in a little bit, but I'm going to go back and see it. Please buy Rick's book if you really do like Mad Monster Party. It is basically the only book out there that talks about it, and it's well researched. So Rick definitely does his homework. You can get that book at miserbros.com, so check that out. I just want to say that we've gotten a lot of very, very positive comments about the podcast, and that's really wonderful to hear. So if you send in some comments to us, whether they're positive or negative, I do appreciate them all, but it is heartening to hear how many people really are enjoying the show. It takes a lot of time and a lot of effort and some money to make these things a reality. But they are a lot of fun for me to do, and it's good to hear that people are enjoying them. So there you go. If you really like what you're listening to, please subscribe. And if you really, really like what you're listening to, please tell a friend. It's important for the Cartoonerific podcast to grow. We have a lot of special guests lined up for the weeks ahead, so stay tuned for that. Anyway, I want you to have a great day. I want you to have an excellent week, and thank you again for tuning in.
This has been a Cartoonerific Studios presentation.
The Cartoonerific podcast is copyright 2024 by Cartoonerific Studios Incorporated. All rights reserved.